with some key leaders in your hometown, and you can have panels on different topics. Maybe you can have something like today we're going to have church and school as a second family, and you can have a pocket free mind in your hometown. Just email us. We will authorize that. We have to ask the speakers for their consent, and then we can help you create an invitation. We can help you with the advertising, and then you can have a free mind edition in your hometown. You can share that with with your fellow town people. You can share that with your region. You can even invite people from neighboring municipalities. I'm sure it's going to be a blast. So, for us to actually start, I will invite my friend, partner, brother, father, Dr. João Paulo Becker Lotufo. Let's give it up for Dr. Lotufo. He's a pediatrician, representative of the Brazilian Association of Pediatrics. Dr. Lotufo, you're going to be the moderator, so I'll ask you to stay on this side here, please. So he is a member of the Brazilian Association of Pediatrics and the São Paulo Association of Pediatrics, and a member and a leader in initiatives to counter alcohol, tobacco, and drug abuse. He is responsible for the anti-smoking project at Doutores da Saúde and tobacco prophylaxis, early pregnancy, and drug abuse in schools in the state of São Paulo. Let's give it up for Dr. Lotufo again. Now let's invite Mr. Ernani Nagy de Moraes. He's always with us. He's a trusted partner of us, of our Free Mind. He is a teacher of mathematics and a member of the EAPREVE drug prevention program at the School of Application of the School of Education of the University of São Paulo. He has a master's in mathematics from the University of São Paulo. I apologize, my voice is a little coarse today. Coarse. Reverend Wagner Zanelato. Reverend, please, let's give it up for Reverend Zanelato. Head pastor of the president of the Youth Challenge of Brazil, in charge of the School of Leaders of the Youth Challenge of Brazil, and also head pastor of the Presbyterian Church of Vila Pompeia. And to close this panel, we'll have Professor Fernanda Dalmazo Câmara. Let's give it up for Professor Fernanda, coordinator of the Drug Consumption Prevention Project at the Basic School of URI at Erechim, Rio Grande do Sul. She is also a physical therapist and an educator. Professor, the floor is yours. Okay, thank you, Martelli. I apologize if I start coughing, but I caught COVID a couple of weeks ago. I'm still recovering. I tested negative, so you don't have to worry. But still, I'm recovering. So, actually, let me give you a brief introduction of what is going on, especially in schools and with teenagers. Let's take a look at the amount of fake news we have to deal with these days. And there's been a dramatic increase, right? Fake news about drugs. And it's important to keep that in mind because this is where the young learn things today. Online, the internet, word of mouth. For example, cigarettes. There's not that much fake news about cigarettes, but alcohol, cannabis, and e-cigarettes, there's a lot of fake news about these things online. So let's say fake news, drinking just a little, taking a few sips and driving is not a problem, but we know that that's not true. A glass of beer, a glass of wine already affects your perception of distance and speed. A single glass. See, the age when they start drinking here. from elementary school to high school. 60% of our kids have already tried alcohol at a very young age, even though it's not allowed for minors. Same thing with cannabis and even crack. The turning point is usually between 13 and 16 years old. And we know that if they start trying drugs very early, the chances of developing dependency also increase. You see, if they start early, this is their dependency level, and if they start later, the dependency is much lower. The levels of dependency are also much lower. Another piece of fake news. I can drink a little while I'm pregnant. Not true. When you drink while you're pregnant, you can develop something that we call the fetal alcoholic syndrome. It's an extremely violent disease with deformities and malformation of the brain, a number of problems. And you know what? Today, girls realize they're pregnant when they're already 3 or 4 months along, and so we're concerned about that. Indirect advertising also remains. Tomorrow there's going to be Pride in São Paulo, the LGBTQ Pride Parade. This is the last Pride where e-cigarettes were widely advertised. So indirect advertising remains. You see, they say everyone smokes marijuana. That's not true. Only 4% of the Brazilian population smokes marijuana routinely. So that's fake news, right? We see that only 4% smoke cannabis routinely. So, or when you ask kids, where are drugs approved or free? They say Amsterdam. They think of that Amsterdam from the 70s and the 80s where there was like marijuana or cannabis tourism. But we see that today, Amsterdam is a city that is filled with rules, alcohol-free zones, smoking-free zones. You can have up to 4 marijuana plants in your balcony, but you cannot walk around smoking pot. There are the coffee shops where you can try the drug, but still, in coffee shops there where you can try marijuana, you don't have alcohol, right? And in the pubs or cafes where you have alcohol, but there's no cannabis. And law enforcement is undercover, and the rules are followed. And they're actually beginning to close the coffee shops because they're not interested in this type of drug tourism. But still, in the imagination of our kids, this still remains. This is a parade in Amsterdam. My son lived there. I've been there many times. No alcohol in public spaces. This is a rule. It's a 95 euro fine if you're caught drinking in public. Littering, 140 euros fine. Pissing in public, 140 euros. If you go to the Bohemian areas in São Paulo, or if you go to the Pride Parade tomorrow, if this rule was enforced, people would go bankrupt because they would be drinking in public. They will be drinking in public, littering, and urinating in public spaces. So the problem with Brazil is the lack of rules. Another piece of fake news: marijuana is risk-free. But look, in American states where cannabis has been approved, the number of car crashes with deaths doubled. Exogenous intoxication by marijuana also increased dramatically, especially among children aged 0 to 5, because they bake marijuana cakes, they make marijuana lollipops. So there's a lot of marketing, but for a child aged 0 to 5, that's a hazard for their lives. So, or medicinal marijuana, this is an absurd terminology that is becoming increasingly widespread. They talk about discriminalization and medicinal cannabis. What's the problem with that? We have to understand that there's no such thing as medicinal cannabis. Cannabinoids, but there are some medicinal cannabinoids or cannabidiols. These are substances found in the cannabis plant. They're known in the medical community, and they play a therapeutic role. For example, morphine, where does it come from? It comes from the same plant, morphine. So if you're in pain, you get morphine. If you have gallstones, they give you morphine. So, and morphine comes from the same plant as heroin, poppies. You've never heard of medicinal poppies. It's morphine that is medicinal, right? And not heroin or poppies in themselves. Same goes for marijuana. You have some cannabinoids that can be considered medicinal. They can have medicinal purposes. Another piece of fake news: illicit drugs do not lead you to illicit drugs. That's also a lie. If you're a heavy drinker, 35% of heavy drinkers start other drugs. And among those who don't drink heavily, only 2% go to heavy drugs. So to prevent illicit drugs, we have to prevent licit drugs. Smokers, 33% try other drugs. Non-smokers, 0%. Today, cannabis ranks first, then cigarettes as their first drug. Another thing, hookahs or shishas. People think that this is harmless. Kids, when kids turn 15, they get a hookah for present. And 1 hour smoking shisha equals 100 cigarettes, so it's powerful. And another challenge that we have to face these days are the e-cigarettes. Manufacturers know what to do, so once we started decreasing the number of smokers of regular cigarettes, we are coming up with an increasing number of smoke-free environments. The industry is fighting back and trying to gain market share again. So they invented this mechanism that purportedly is better than regular cigarettes. But that's also a lie, because the advertising, and they said originally it was meant for older people who wanted to quit, but actually the advertising is focused on the young. Last year, e-cigarettes sponsored summer camps for young kids. Their summer camps are like our carnival. So it's the e-cigarette it's like the e-cigarette industry sponsoring our carnival, just like Ambev, the world's largest brewery, does. And in fact, e-cigarettes have much more nicotine than regular cigarettes, almost 15 times more nicotine. Because what's addictive about cigarettes is precisely the nicotine. So this is not for senior citizens who can't quit. This is actually meant for kids who will develop this dependency in a very short time. Then, the material that vaporizes the nicotine is highly carcinogenic, and it has already led many kids to caused many episodes of pneumonia, cancer, even lung transplantation.
We see news with, of people with severe lung lesions. And why am I talking about this? Because schools have been seeking us to talk to the young population because they're smoking e-cigarettes in the bathrooms at school.
Just like we, our parents, our grandparents, used to smoke actual cigarettes in the bathroom, hidden in the 1950s or 60s. So the marketing technique is the same. And this is what we have to address, because we know that teenagers who start smoking e-cigarettes will soon be dependent on nicotine and will eventually smoke marijuana or regular cigarettes. So this was launched in 2015. It's a millionaire company. Over 2 million high school students regularly use e-cigarettes in the United States, and they can't quit because dependency is very strong. or in Brazil, every year, 150,000 people die every year because of cigarettes, 100,000 because of alcohol. We're talking about 250,000 people every year. If we add marijuana, synthetic drugs to that, the number of deaths caused by drugs exceeds the number of COVID deaths in a year. Every year we have a number of conferences and events. Everyone knows we should be wearing masks. Actually, should all be wearing masks today. There's one lady in the back wearing a mask, but you should all be wearing masks. The pandemic's not over yet. And the number of deaths by drugs exceeds the number of COVID deaths. And we had vaccination campaigns, masks, social distancing, but for drugs, we only have like one-off initiatives that are not very effective. Kids say, oh, I will use it just for now. I can quit whenever I want. Not true. Or parents say, oh, I hope my children won't smoke, but cigarettes are the least of my concerns. I often hear that. I hear parents say, well, I'm happy my son only uses marijuana and not other drugs. Or parents may say, I'm happy my daughter only smokes vapes. So parents themselves are not aware of the risks in doing drugs. And how do we? Well, I encourage early counseling, and because if you can go to a school and have like a special session with the kids, but if it's a one-off initiative, it won't last. So we need continuous initiatives in schools, churches, and families. We need continuous, ongoing efforts in every place we can. So, and this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what is being done in schools to reduce smoking, alcohol, and drug consumption. And this is scientific data. This is scientific information. About brief counseling initiatives, but ongoing. It can't be one-off. So, and there's scientific evidence saying that continuous, ongoing initiatives are more effective than one-off big events. So today, two schools are going to talk to us. We're going to talk about 9 activities we did there throughout a year, over a year, and with that we could reduce drug experimentation by 70% in 10 public schools around our university campus. We'll have a couple of examples during this session. These are the materials we use to support the project. We hand out these leaflets, these booklets, to recap, reinforce the message that we discussed in the beginning. These materials are available online. We'll tell you more about that later. Just for you to have a picture of it. This kid can't go to bed without reading Dr. Bartow's book. So we created this character, Dr. Bartow. Kids love the character. He's a very appealing his character among children. And then the other day I saw a 75-year-old patient who wanted to quit. And he came to me and said, he said he wanted to quit because of his grandson. His grandson loves the booklets, and his grandson made him read the booklet every time he lit a cigarette. So it helps families. That's what I'm trying to say. This idea of brief counseling can happen in the everyday practice of doctors and health agents. It can be done in schools, churches, and in any community setting, even in politics. So let's start talking about what happens in schools. I'll ask Ernani to talk. Ernani will tell us about what's going on in schools. He's going to tell us about the experience of the University of São Paulo. Morning, Lotufo. I was anxious for my session. I was anxious. I thought Saturday would never come. My name's Ernani. I'm a math teacher, and I'm infiltrated here. I'm a double agent. I'm kidding. And I'm in what we call the Application School. It's inside the University of São Paulo. It's an elementary and high school that belongs to the School of Education of the University of São Paulo, and I teach high school students there. I'm a math teacher again, and I'm very happy to be here, not only to share what we're doing at the school, but also to share my concerns with you, right? There are many questions we have to address in schools, and sometimes we feel completely powerless. So I'm here to share my experience and also my concerns with you. So, first question I would like to ask you is, who's to blame? Because if we're here today, we have a problem to solve, right? So again, who's to blame for what we're going through these days? I handed out a few forms for you in the beginning. Can anyone come forward? Would anyone, do we have a volunteer to talk about that? To talk about who's to blame? Just raise your hand and I'll go to you. Who's to blame? Who's guilty? Whose fault is this situation that we're going through? I handed out some leaflets to those sitting here in the front. Who are you again? What's your name again? Ana Paula. Ana Paula, what's written in your leaflet? Who's to blame? The peers, boyfriend or girlfriend? Friends, boyfriends or girlfriends? If she was a lawyer and she had to build a case around that, if she was a lawyer, if you were a lawyer or a prosecutor and you had to say that it's the friends, what would you say? Well, I would say that there's peer pressure, belonging. I will do it because my friends are doing it, or because my boyfriend or my girlfriend is pressuring me and telling me, oh, if you love me, you should do it. There's also, again, this question of peer pressure. Yes. Friends can be to blame. Yes. Thank you, Ana Paula. Did anyone get a different handout? Do you have a different handout? What does your handout say? Please come forward. Who are you again? Alicia. Alicia, what does your handout say? My handout says that it's the drug dealer that is to blame. If you were a lawyer and you had to put the blame on the dealer, what would you say? Well, I would say that dealers are not users. They're only marketers. They only sell drugs. Their focus is profit. They do that for the money. So they would say, oh, buy it. It's cool. You're going to feel good. It's going to be good for you. But they don't care whether or not you're going to feel good. They just want your money. They don't care about you. Warm hands for Alicia. Thank you, Alicia. Anyone else? Anyone else? Who's to blame? Valdir, what does your handout say? My handout says it's the media. Media, the press, TV, the internet. Why can the media be guilty? Because the objective of the media is to destroy our children with advertising. They invest heavily in advertising, and sometimes we advertise things on Instagram and on Facebook. When we share things on Instagram and Facebook, we often advertise brands for free. I don't drink, but my friends post things on Facebook, drinking and consuming brands. They don't even realize that they're advertising for free. Warm hands for Valdir. Thank you. Thank you for your remarks, sir. Other people have other handouts, but I think that these examples are interesting, right? So in school activities, we give handouts like these to the children. We usually do this with children second year of high school. Some will say that it's the society that is to blame, the media, drug dealers, the individual himself or herself, the school, if there's no prevention program in the school, maybe the teachers and counselors are just careless, friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, and maybe even the family, right? Even families can be to blame, right? Parents have to set the example, right? Parents have to try as much as possible to be role models for their kids. That are handouts for the kids, and we do this activity usually in the second year of high school, and the name of this activity is precisely Who's to Blame, and then we discuss the possible responsible parties for drug consumption in society. And then with this activity we create many opportunities for conversation, for discussion. Like Dr. Lotufo said, these cannot be one-off initiatives, right? It has to be an ongoing effort, continuous activities in school environments. And there's two key objectives in my presentation. The first is to say that yes, it's possible to have a drug prevention program in school settings. And the second objective or goal here is to say that not only is it possible, it's very important. Schools have to be, or schools must be, prevention hubs in every community. There are some guiding objectives in education. One of the objectives that one of the guidelines that we use here in Brazil is the PCN. PCN is like the guidelines for education. But we cannot forget that there are some other previous documents that were issued before PCN that talk about contemporary education. Like we used to use some of these documents in the 1990s and in the 2000s. And what they had the cross-cutting topics there. And what are cross-cutting topics? Cross-cutting topics are pervasive. They involve many different subjects, disciplines. So like mathematics, geography, Portuguese language. So and for example, when we talk about prevention, we should always focus on health rather than on the disease. So of course we can show pictures of car crashes or lungs with cancer for the children, but in prevention that should not be the focus. We should try and promote health as much as possible, encourage students to go to school and discuss that in a pleasant environment. Moreover, we're not supposed to have expert teachers to talk about that. I'm a math teacher. I'm not an expert in drugs or drug prevention, so I'm not supposed to be an expert. But I have to do my homework. I have to study. I have to be prepared to talk about that with my students in classrooms. We have to talk to parents. We have to use scientific data. We have to bring scientific information to the classrooms. In our school, in the School of Application, I want you to. My school is quite peculiar, but I want you to think about your own school, your school setting, or your family, your community center. But my school is a public school. It is maintained by the School of Education. It's inside the São Paulo campus of the University of São Paulo. It has about 720 students from elementary to high school. Each grade has about 3 classes with 30 students each. And the students, there's a draw. A third of the places are for students from the university, from university staff. So it's a diverse, because some students are from the upper classes, some students are from the lower classes, but that's not a problem. We have students from very different backgrounds, which makes for a very interesting and diverse environment. We have the EAPREVE, the drug prevention program. We've had it for many years, and it's a very dear program to me because it really cares for the students and it makes a difference in their lives. Today, it's a group of teachers, so there's me, math teacher, there's Carlos, geography, Luciano, physical education, and Sheila, Portuguese language. There are other programs in school where we discuss racial questions, gender and sexuality, but this is focused on drug prevention. This is the group of teachers. The teacher at the top there to the left is Miss Jussara, and Marina on the corner is also a nurse. And we didn't come up with this program out of the blue. We studied. So in 2003, we worked with the municipal hospital, with the São Paulo hospital, a huge hospital, and we worked with them. We got a scholarship, and we studied a lot there. We studied adolescents, drugs, specific types of drugs, and then with that knowledge, we started creating materials for our students, booklets, Q&As, or FAQs, actually. We have a drama club. We have debates, roundtables, rhetoric clubs. This is our mascot. This monkey has been drawn by one of our students. I think the monkey looks super cool. And the justification for the monkey is like, even the little monkeys already know about prevention. Don't miss out on that. Even the monkeys of the campus know that already. So today, we still use many of those activities we came up with in the year in 2003, and we always come up with new things. For example, the other day we had an activity with Clover cigarettes. They used to be quite big a couple of years ago. No longer a concern. Clove cigarettes. Sorry, clove cigarettes. And then every quarter there's at least one meeting with every class. So in sixth year, in sixth with the sixth grade, we discuss some situations about alcohol consumption, driving under the influence, and I also there are some mathematics exercises there. We discuss traffic and driving legislation. So every year there are some activities for each classroom, of course, that are regular. And with that, as a math teacher, I can work with them with statistics, charts, graphs. So we work with drug prevention, and we also use like the regular subject. And why? Again, why have these programs? The guidelines for Brazilian education say that prevention directed at adolescents occurs in schools because this is ideally the place where all teenagers should be. Schools are naturally the place where teenagers should be. It's easier to start prevention work in schools, to share information, give guidance, and also to maintain some contact with the families. It's important to engage the families. The national guidelines for education also say that, however, it's not in schools that prevention will affect or address those kids at high risk. So schools alone are not enough. Schools won't solve the problem by themselves. There are other protection factors that have to be used. Kids with at high risk sometimes drop out of school, and so in this case, it would be interesting to have public initiatives in the communities because many problematic or many kids that are at risk are no longer in the schools, right? They drop out. So prevention, drug prevention in schools. When we have activities with students, teenagers, right? Teenagers will say, oh, I know it all. I have Google. I have the internet. I'm experienced. I know it. This is old. I've heard it before. But that's not true, right? Teenagers, sometimes they have misinformation, right? So we have to give them reliable, trustworthy information. Dr. Paulo said in the beginning, we could have like a pocket free mind editions in schools. That would be super cool. We should, like yesterday, that session about e-cigarettes, yesterday or the day before yesterday, I don't know anymore, I'm sorry. But yesterday we talked about e-cigarettes. That was so interesting. We have to bring that conversation to schools, right? We had scientific data. That was a very rich discussion, and I'm dying to take that discussion to my school. I'm going to talk about that first thing Monday morning in school. But again, we have to open places. We have to make sure that they are comfortable to talk about that and that they feel a comfort, a safe place for them to talk about that. And it can't be just a lecture, like I go there, I talk for an hour, and then I leave. No, it has to be engaging, collective, cooperative. We have to make sure that their voices are heard, and we also have to engage students, teachers, community members, and we have to make them feel welcomed. And sometimes they come to us, they say like, teacher, I don't want to be a snitch, but in that classroom we may have a problem with marijuana, so why don't we, so they come to us, they tell us what's going on, they begin to trust us. The more I come to Free Mind events and the more I work with prevention, the more I love it, and the more I come to the conclusion that we've known it for ages, but prevention is really an action of love. It is, I hear Dr. Lotufo, and I've been here for like 2 or 3 days, and I've learned so much from you. But the key message will always be that it's about caring for one another. And in classrooms, I don't know if you remember that. I know some of you are teachers, but when you work with students for a year, you create a bond with them, and you try to. I want to prepare my students for life, and of course it's my job, but I also do it for love. These are some of my sources, some sources that I think are very useful. This first book by Dr. Malouf, this second book by Dr. Meyer, it's very interesting. The Challenges of Adolescence by Vera Robel. There's this a bid website. This website is also very interesting. There's the Albert Einstein Hospital website, which is also very rich. And before I actually close, this is my contact info. If you want to text me or send me an email, please feel free. There's my Instagram here. Make sure you follow me. And I recently created a website called Aperfeiçoa and there we're going to have links to websites and reliable information, videos about drug prevention, education videos for math teachers. And I recently participated in a contest by CAEM, which is the mathematics school of the University of São Paulo. And I won the contest with a project that talks about drug prevention in schools using mathematics. So I teach statistics and mathematics to my students talking about drug prevention. It's super cool. My students love it. It totally works. And I'm around for questions. Thank you very much for listening to me.
I would like to thank you very much for your words. When I see a child in the outpatient room, as a kid that comes from the School of Application of FEUSP, and I always ask if they know Professor Ernani. All of them know Professor Ernani because he is the guy in school. He is the maths teacher. He's not only teaching maths. He's doing something else, and I think that this is extremely important. Uh, Dr. Bartô project is really interesting. We start an initiative with the Dr. Bartô project, and then the schools they develop their own projects. We have 5,000 public schools in São Paulo, and so we need a teacher in each school that is the person. It doesn't have to be a teacher, it can be a physiotherapist. I visited Erechim, the city of Erechim in Rio Grande do Sul 7 years ago, but in the city of Erechim, Fernanda developed something, and I will ask her to share her experience with us. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Bartô and the Free Mind organizers for inviting me. I'm going to share you the experience that I have with the basic education school at the city of Erechim. Before showing you the project, I would like to make a comment. I am a physiotherapist. I am a teacher at the physiotherapy course at the university in the city of Erechim, and we've been carrying out some very interesting activities at the university. And every year we focus on showing the community and the young population explaining how dangerous alcohol and cigarettes are. These are some pictures of some of the courses that we had. So we work on a multidisciplinary way. In 2019, for the first time, I was the guiding professor of a student who was conducting her first research study. And after this experience, I started thinking about the possibility of working with prevention, because up until then, I worked only evaluating the damages of tobacco in animals. So I started studying. I started seeking references, and then I found Dr. Paulo Lotufo's project, Dr. Bartô. I got in contact with him. He immediately accepted our invitation, and he visited the school. So the doctor visited our school, and we gave our students the lectures. Sometimes he spoke to the students themselves, and sometimes to the parents. These are some images of the activities we had. So Dr. Bartô was invited to interview. He was interviewed by the news, the TV channel of the city, and he shared his work with the entire community. This is an image of when we visited the city government and talked about policies to prevent the use of drugs. And then we had the pandemic, and we could no longer keep on working with teenagers who were my main focus. After a year, I went back to one specific school, and we started the program again. The school had many users, and it made me feel so happy to see that we could help them, because the young those young kids, they didn't have much information. So when schools went back, I got in contact with the Dr. Lotufo again, and he visited our schools again. So we did it one lecture for the students from the 6th and 7th grade, talking about tobacco, alcohol, and nargile, and another one with general information about drugs for high school students. Here we have some images of the live we had with Dr. Paulo. The kids asked questions. They were really active. They participated a lot. It was very interesting. These are images of the live with the 8th and 9th grade. And after the lectures, all the children received Dr. Bartô's booklets. They were very happy, and they took home a little bit of what they have learned. This is the invitation that we made. So it was specific for the students in that specific school. And whenever we carry out an activity in the school, we send parents a WhatsApp message explaining a little bit of the content of what we were addressing, which makes parents more aware. So, in order to start the program Previ Drogas, we thought it was important to know a little bit more about the profile of this student. So we created a questionnaire and we asked them about energetic drinks, alcohol, and nargile. And we also asked them about their relationship with their families. The reason why we worked with energy drinks is because I've been seeing children using energetic beverages as if they were soft drinks. And we know that many parents, they don't know what are energy drinks and how harmful they are, and they buy it and give it to their children. So the sample had 320 students, 106 from the 6th and 7th grade, and 170 from the 8th and 9th grade. All the children took the agreement terms, and the students also signed a term saying that they wanted to take part in the research study. So a little bit of data about energy drinks. When we asked them if they knew what it was, they said they knew. 67.6 had already tried it, 41.9 currently use, 87.5 have friends who drink it, 70.6 have family members who drink it, and 69% don't know what it is made of, the ingredients. The variables, friends, family, and not knowing the ingredients showed a very significant relationship with the individuals who used. Among those who use, 56.1 would drink alcohol sometimes, 36.8 only at weekends, and 7.23 times a week. This is information from the 6th and 7th grades. When we asked them if they talked to their parents about energy drinks, 52.9% said they didn't talk about it. 47.1 said that they did. Out of those who didn't talk about it, 51.4 said that they wouldn't like to talk about it, and 48.6 said that they would like to talk to someone. And then we asked an open question about who they would want to be willing to talk to. So here we have the answers. Who would they like to talk to? The first person is the mother, 25.7. Mothers are the first people they would want to talk to. They say it's the person who they feel safe with, it's the person who they feel more comfortable. And then after mothers, there's the school with 22.9, 17.1 mother, father, school, 11.5 father and school. So you will see that the school stands out. They are interested in talk to school, and they said that they chose the school. It's because they offer us safe information, and those who they would be talking to are people who like teenagers. So this is a multiple correspondence analysis. This graph shows is widely used for categoric varieties, and it shows two separate groups. In blue, it's the students who drink energy drinks, and the red circled are the students who don't. The dots are the students. What we could see, the group that uses energy drinks, they don't know the ingredients, they know the effects. Most of them are boys, and they use it 3 times a week. Now, in relation to talking to their parents, it's the circle ellipses are not that separated. We saw that there's a group who speaks to their parents, and it's also possible to see that there's a relation between using at weekends, knowing the ingredients, and knowing how harmful it is. The green area shows the students who say that they know about the harmful effects, but they really don't. Those of the or some students who say that they talk to their parents, but they don't actually. So these are students who don't really know about what energy drinks are. So in relation with nargile hookahs, a 89% said that they know what it is. 9.3 said they already used it. 90.7% never used it. 42.4 have friends who use, and 19.8 have family members who use. So having friends and having people within their families it really influences those who, well, has a close association with those who have already used. So 89.1% of the students don't feel like trying it. And now showing the graph again, we can see 2 different groups. Blue is the group that uses nargile hookahs, and we can see a very strong association of students who use hookahs. They have friends who use hookahs. They have friends who smoke vapes, and they feel like trying e-cigarettes vapes. So, and this is the group of boys of the 9th grade. So we were able to see this through the study. In the questionnaire, we left an open question. We asked them to write a word that was related with what they knew about hookahs. So these are the words they wrote down. The largest ones are the ones that were mentioned the most. And we didn't find any word that meant something positive, which made us understand that they know nargile and hookahs are not that good. So with regards to vapes, 87.8 know what it is, 12.2 have already used, 87.8 have never used it. So among those who use it, 30.8 have friends who use it, and 11.5 have family members who use it. In the same way, the association of having friends and family members who use vapes strongly relates with the teenagers who use. Amongst those who don't use, 92% don't feel like trying it, and 8% feel like trying it. Now, the graph shows us very interesting information. It shows a significant association between students who smoke e-cigarettes and who have friends who use vapes, family members who do use vapes as well, friends who use hookahs, nargile, and who feel like trying nargiles, also elementary school students. And just like with the nargiles, they used a word to describe e-cigarettes, and we also didn't find any word with a positive meaning. They didn't mention anything positive. So we came to the conclusion that all of them know that e-cigarettes are not good for your health. Then we asked all of them about drugs. We asked if they talked to their parents about drugs. It's important for us to know, because many students say that it's easy for them to talk to their parents about it, and others say that it's really difficult to talk to them because their parents are not opened. So one of the objectives of evaluating this is being able to help parents to talk to their children. So 68.9 talk about drugs with their parents and 30.2 don't. And in this group, 28.8 wouldn't like to talk about it and 71.1 would like to talk about it. And among those who would like to talk, 38.5% said that the school would be the first option, the first place where they would like to talk about drugs. So we, after gathering so much data, we developed other activities, and the project ended up becoming a program to prevent drug use. And it's a project that has been present in the schools continuously. So we encourage dialogue at schools, in classrooms, with their families. We help students to have information. We encourage them to talk, to discuss, and we also encourage them to think. Whenever I talk to the students, I always tell them that we are sharing knowledge with them, and then it's up to them to decide what they want for their future. Here are some of the lectures that we had with them. In the 6th and 7th grade, we had energy drinks, and in the other grades, nargile and alcohol. Here we have some pictures of the activities with the 6th grade and energy drinks. This is the 7th year student and 8th and 9th grades. We have 3 classrooms, the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. So I worked with the classrooms individually, and the results were fantastic. Um, so here are the lectures about nargile hookahs. We had the partnership of the med schools, the med students, and here images of the lectures about alcohol that we were performed last week. So we shared with them some information, and then we took them to the anatomy laboratory, and they could see the organs that were harmed by the use of alcohol and tobacco. So people started talking about our work. Um, the some other schools in the city invited us to talk to them, and some neighboring cities also asked for our help. Coordinators, they get in touch and they say, I need help, and because I can see that my students are smoking too much e-cigarettes and nargile. The And it's good to get those invitations, because then we can spread the word to other and more students. Here are the activities that are scheduled for the month of July. We are going to use the material, Dr. Bartos material, and we are going to have workshops where they're going to make videos, banners, and then some initiatives in the second half of the year. We have some more activities, and we also have activities scheduled for 2023. What we want is to start talking to our children at an earlier age, and then we encourage them to join activities like theater plays or banner creation. So I would like to thank all of you very much. I would like to thank Dr. Bartô very much. I would like to teach the school to thank the school where I work. And this project has been successful, and we have the approval of parents and the school.
Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you. So we've just seen examples, two people who could start a movement in their schools, in their cities, in their communities. Since she talked about energy drinks, that got me thinking, this is a newspaper I keep. It has a news story about a car crash. The driver ended up driving the wrong way and caused a major crash. Many people don't know what energy drinks are for. Energy drinks have a high content of caffeine. So energy drinks have a high content of caffeine to keep you alert, to keep you awake. Why? So that you can drink more alcohol. That's really the purpose. So you drink energy drinks so that you can drink more alcohol. And then you think that the alcohol disappeared from your body, but then at the end of the day, you'll see that the alcohol is still there. It's only concealed by the energy drink, but it's still there. And it's just as risky, like this driver who drove on the wrong side of the road. It was a major car crash with deaths. So it was important to talk about energy drinks. This guy who caused this accident had drunk a lot and consumed energy drinks. He thought he was good to drive. So the two most severe patients that I'm treating right now, I'm a pediatrician. I treat diarrhea, vomiting, children. I talk to children, right? I treat children. I treat infant patients, but I cannot deal with a patient who's in alcoholic coma at the age of 14 or schizophrenia and psychotic breaks because or paranoia caused by marijuana in teenagers. Teenagers are having, and the two most severe patients I have are from my church. That's why I brought Wagner to talk to us about the spiritual part. Wagner will introduce himself. Thank you for joining us, Wagner. Good morning. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here this morning. Dr. Lotufo was very kind to introduce me. My name is Wagner. I'm a pastor in the Presbyterian Church of Brazil. I live in São Paulo. And again, I live in the enemies area because right next to my church there's the Palmeiras Stadium, and I'm a fan of Corinthians, big rival. So my congregation, most of my congregation are fans of my rival team, but still. I work for an institution called Desafio Jovem, the Young Challenge. It's a federation of therapeutic communities, and there we have designed a project for schools. Some other pastors and members of the Presbyterian Church So we created a number of materials for continuing education for elementary school students. This is my family, my gems, Enzo, Bernardo, and my wife Juliana. And I'm also a member of the Presbyterian Church of Brazil, and I praise God for that, because the Brazilian Church, the Presbyterian Church of Brazil, We also have a university, and we have a committee for countering drug abuse. We have a committee for that. I'm part of that mission. I'm part of that committee. We work with that in the church. But then again, when it comes to thinking about the role of the church, we have to think of what a church is and the role a church should play. The word Igreja, Portuguese for church, comes from Greek ecclesia, which is a public gathering, a public meeting. There's two parts to this word. Ek comes from outside, and kaleo is to call. So an ecclesia, a church, an igreja, is a meeting of those who are invited from the outside. But unfortunately, today, churches only think about what's inside already. They only talk to those who are already inside the church. They don't look outside. And that's the opposite of the origin of the whole thing. But God wants the church to invite the people from outside into the church. I remember when I was still in the being trained, and I heard our head reverend say, if your church closed today, would your neighbors be thankful for that, or would they miss you? And that question, I never forgot that question. I want my neighbors to miss us if we ever close our doors. So as a reverend, what can I do? I'm a pastor of a small community. There's 120 members. We have 120 members there. But we want to drive positive change, and we want to influence our community. So our mission, the mission of our church, is to worship God. There's an American pastor who says, worshiping is the fuel of the mission. So I go to the church, I go to church to worship, but then that drives me to a mission, to go outside, to engage with the society where I'm in and make a difference. So the mission describes everything that the church is meant to do in this world. We have to be the salt of the earth and light of the world. This is what our Lord Jesus said. We have to be the salt of the earth and light of the world. Some people may say, why? What does that have to do with drug prevention? It has everything to do with drug prevention. We have to be engaged with the process. We have to engage with our communities, with our society, and make a difference and drive positive change. The role of the church is to drive changes, to be a change agent of the agendas and practices of the context where it is. Close to my church, there's a public school, and one day I went there, and you know, there's this prejudice against pastors. I went there one day and I said, I work with prevention and I have a cool drug prevention program. And then the principal said, yeah, but how much does it cost? I said, nothing. And then she said, how much, how can it be nothing? Nothing. And then she said, when can you start? And then I started. And in the beginning, I didn't tell them I was a pastor. And it was interesting. And now I'm the coach of their soccer team. We play championships. We have a very good team there. And in their graduation prom was their graduation, their prom, their graduation party was in the church one day. I was the sponsor of a few classes there because we engaged with the school, and then kids from church would go to the school, and then kids from the school would go to the church. I had the keys to the school gymnasium to take the kids there on weekends to play football there. So we engaged with the school and we achieved some amazing results. Again, we believe that the church has to be a change agent. And you know, if you work with children or teenagers, you know that being part of a church increases the protection factors. It does. If a child or a teenager is going to church, that increases the protection of that kid. It increases the protection factors against drugs, but it's not enough. It doesn't mean that they will not get involved with drugs, but some protection factors are increased. Why is that? Because in church, when you work with children and you address some protective factors, I was talking in another room, and I told them that I so- sometimes I pick up my kids from school and they start complaining about school, and then I ask them, why is that? What's the purpose of your life? Why are you whining and complaining? And then when we work with the children, and when we work with protective factors, continuing education is absolutely fundamental. Like one-off initiatives, isolated lectures, okay, they work, but you have to work continuously to strengthen the values and the principles of the children, of the teenagers, because then they find meaning, purpose, a reason for things, and that's very important. You have to give them a meaning, purpose, right? When we work with therapeutic communities, that's precisely what we try to do. We try to give them meaning, reasons, purposes, a reason to do things. So I understand that as a church, as a school, as civil society, if we work with prevention and if we work on the protective factors, it'll be much more effective than working with remediation later when they're already doing drugs. We have, again, of course, you know that we're here to talk about prevention, but still, I believe that the church can help because the church can help give meaning to one's life. That doesn't mean that what we do alone is enough, and doesn't mean that children who go to church are immune to this evil, to this disease. I do biblical counseling, and I work with teenagers and even children there. And they ask questions about that. They have emotional problems. Some are depressed. They have panic. Many problems, modern diseases. And I also see some teenagers and some children and teenagers who have panic and depression go to church. They're not immune to that. But being involved with a faith, with a religion, helps. It can help them. At least it can help them. It can be a protective factor because in church, we continuously try to provide them with the tools to deal with these problems. It's not enough again, but it can help. We have to open our eyes, and not only open our eyes, we have to open our churches so that the church can actually be a change agent in the context where it's inserted. We work at the national level with the Presbyterian Church of Brazil to encourage a few initiatives like prevention initiatives. This week we're going to have a live session next Friday. Next Friday we're going to have this live streaming for the National Day of Drug Prevention. So we're going to share information, share content. It's going to be interactive. We also have some continuing education initiatives. We have a publisher, a publishing house with the church. So we have the Sunday school. But do we talk about drug prevention in Sunday school? Yes, we do. Maybe in Catholic churches, it's what they call catechese, Sunday school again. But it's important to train multipliers, train the trainers. You don't have to be an expert, a doctor, but you can be trained to do that in your community. The Brazilian Presbyterian Church has also created an online platform where we share courses and education, online material that can be shared with anyone. So that's also pretty cool. We have pastoral counseling, support groups, again, education initiatives. We have this initiative in the state of Espírito Santo in northeastern Brazil, and It's a work for drug. It's a support group for addicts, and we've been very successful there. We're multiplying that initiative. We have therapeutic communities Brazil-wide, so this is something we've been doing, but that's at the national level. At the local level, we have some practical campaigns and practical initiatives to strengthen the bonds between children, teenagers, families, communities, churches. At my community, in my congregation, in my community, we have this great facility, and we only use our facilities like once or twice a week. I mean, we don't use the entire infrastructure we have. Only on Sunday mornings, right? When we have the cult, and when we get together, and then we have Sunday school. It's an expensive area, and we're going to have a metro station near there. They want to buy our church. Developers want to buy our church. They call us every week to buy the church. We've been there for 6 years. We're not going to sell the church, but still, developers call me every week. So it's a gentrified area, an expensive area of the city of São Paulo, and it stays closed the entire week, most of the time. So it used to be like that. And then we started to create some projects to strengthen our bonds with our community, to bring in the community, because it's also preventive. That can also encourage some protective factors. So now we have weekly activities there. We have judo classes. This is actually the judo class. I have the yellow ribbon already. I have, actually, I'm the orange ribbon already. So I'm taking classes myself. My children go, many children go. We have a Japanese judo instructor there. We have a partnership with a dojo. So we have judo classes every Wednesdays and Fridays. Black belt. I have an orange belt already. But churches can be change agents, and churches can do that. In addition to judo, we have jiu-jitsu, and also jiu-jitsu classes every week. Right now, actually, they're having jiu-jitsu classes right now. Our jiu-jitsu class is practicing right now as we speak, and we are bringing in children from the community. It's still at a very early stage. Judo classes are more sought after. We also have chess classes and gymnastics. Every Tuesdays and Thursdays, there is gymnastics classes for our local ladies. Not all of them are members of the church. They're neighbors. But then I go down there, I talk to them, and I understand that this is what the church is also supposed to do. The church can be an agent of change. We had an empty area in the back. It was not very big, but still, it could be used. It was empty. It was like an empty parking lot that no one used. And then we came up with this mini soccer field, and children love it. I think some of them go to Sunday school because they can play after Sunday school. And again, we understand that churches are change agents, and they must behave accordingly. Mabel is here. She's shy, but Mabel, stand up. Mabel is also a pastor, and she is the manager of what we call SIAT 2 in São Paulo. It's an initiative from the city of São Paulo that works with the homeless. It works with other churches, not only the Presbyterian churches, but every Thursday we go downtown and we work with the homeless. We go to this homeless shelter. Actually, my church is small. We're a small congregation, but we are starting a church in the downtown area where most homeless people are. Every week we have like 10 or 15 members, not many, but still, we're starting it in the area where crack addicts and homeless people are. So we are inviting people from outside in to make a difference. And as a church, we want to take action, and we want to help with prevention, counseling, family counseling, so that we can actually warn people of the dangers and problems of drugs and alcohol abuse. I understand that human beings, anthropologically speaking, I believe in that. I believe that we were created to the image of God. So we are spiritual beings. I firmly believe we're spiritual beings. And church plays, therefore, a fundamental role in society because we are the spiritual organizations by definition, right? So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very, very much for the invitation. I'm very, very happy to be here. So if you're a teacher, a community leader, member of a church, look for your leader, talk to your religious leader, and get involved. And don't just sit back. Roll up your sleeves, get down to work. I know there's a lot we can do. We can make a difference. There's our website. That's my phone number. Call me, text me. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. I learned from my pastor that the church is the family of families. So before we close this session, because Martelli is telling me that we're running out of time, so I'm going to try and be brief. But we're not running out of time yet. We have another session yet, so don't hurry me up. Sometimes I go to school and I go to church and say, who has 5 reals? But then someone gives me 5 reals, and then I say, I'm gonna put these 5 reals in my wallet. What were you gonna do with these 5 reals? Oh, I was gonna buy myself a snack. Oh, okay. So you can either buy yourself a snack or you can burn it. You can burn your money with drugs, like this. And then the other day, I set fire to 5 reals, and the kid almost cried. And then I picked it. I got it back from my wallet, and it was multiplied. So the idea is to multiply. It's to plant the seed and show them that spending money on drugs is burning money. Then after I burned the boy's money, and gave him 25 reals instead, all the kids had 5 reals. They all wanted to give me their money for me to multiply their money, but still, that was over by then. This is a material we produced in partnership with Free Mind. Actually, I think this is my 7th edition of Free Mind, and we, the AA, for example, have their 12 steps. NAs, the Narcotics Anonymous, also have 12 steps. So I decided to create the 12 steps for people to avoid drugs, the 12 prevention steps for parents to prevent their children from starting drugs. It's written for adults, but there's also a part for children, a united family with limits, because parents do not say no to their children. Parents they don't know how to say no to their children anymore, and not telling your children they can't do something is a problem. You have to say no. And even prevention. Prevention starts during pregnancy. If the mother smokes, I have to make her quit. If the father drinks, I have to make him drink. This is what I try to do in my office every day. Also, second step, encourage dialogue inside families. When I presented this project to the Department of Education, they said, you cannot talk about united families because 38 of the families are separated. Parents are divorced. But this is a united family. This is a united family. This is a foster house. It's not a family, a traditional family, father, mother, children. It's a foster family, but still it works. It's third step. Meals together. The families should have their meals together. My wife is my proofreader, and she was mad at me. She said, you don't have lunch with us. You're telling people to have lunch together, but you don't have lunch with your family. But then on weekends, I do. If I do this every day, the prevalence of drug use decreases. If families that do not have their meals together are more likely to have problems with drug abuse. That's a protective factor. You have to know what your children do in their free time. If you never know what your children are doing on their free time, prevalence of drug use is 14%. And this is research, published research. This is a scientific article published in the Brazilian Journal of Pediatrics in 2018. If you know what they're doing on their free time, this prevalence is reduced to 4%. Step number 5, supervise your children's homework. I hated it when my mom made me memorize geography and history, but it's also a protective factor. Doing your children's homework with them. If you supervise their homework, prevalence decreases from 13% to 5%. Another protective factor. Step number 6. Tell your children what their strengths are, because education tends to be very repressive, and no, you have to show your children what's good about them, what they do right, their strengths. Another protective factor is related to what the church is doing. Increase in cultural and sports activities. It's a project done in Iceland. Iceland is a country with a high prevalence of alcoholism, and what they did was to increase cultural and sports activities. And they have this curfew, so after a given time, in order to be outdoors after a given hour, teenagers have to be with their parents. I said this the other day on a radio station, and teenagers from the city, they wanted to beat me up because I proposed curfew, but there must be some curfew in some places. Children cannot be left alone on the streets. Step number 8, engagement in social activities. When I was 7, I'm ecumenical, right? So when I was 7, I was already in the Salvation Army. I was raised Presbyterian. I'm a Baptist now, and I love Father Haroldo from the Catholic Church. So social activities are very important. I've always encouraged my children to do that. I think I even exaggerated, because my son is in Nepal working with an NGO rescuing girls from human trafficking. It can be less social. I miss my son, but still. Practice spirituality. Look at the data. Look at the data, really. If I go to church every week, my odds ratio is 1. If I never go to church, the odds ratio increases to 2. For 18-year-old girls who get pregnant at parties, they do drugs, they get drunk, they get pregnant, and then they come to me and say, "Doctor, everyone does drugs." And then I say, "It's not true. On your street, is there anyone who doesn't do drugs?" And then she says, "Well, the people from the church." So how about going to church? Because with your current friends, they all do drugs, and, well, there's no way out for you, darling. So good company, good friends. Those 2 problem kids that I talked about in the beginning, when they went to college, they made friends with drug users, and now they're schizophrenic. They have been damaged for the rest of their lives. There's no coming back. The other day, a kid told me, "Oh, I've been clean of marijuana for 5 years. How long will it take for my memory to come back?" Your memory will never be the same. Marijuana causes brain damage, and that's irreversible. Not everyone will have it, but if there's brain damage, there's no coming back. Step 11, not smoking or not drinking in excess. Look at the data. Non-smoking parents, prevalence 2%. Smoking parents, the prevalence goes up to 58%. This is absurd. Non-drinking parents, 1% drug prevalence. Drinking parents, 25%. This increases by 25%. or 25 times, sorry. So this is what you have to do with your cigarettes. It's easy, right? That's what you have to do with your cigarettes. You have to make good friends. You have to make friends with the right people. And then step 12, set the example. Be the role model. If you're on the road and there's a traffic jam, bad drivers everywhere, and then you drive on the roadside to pass the other people, your son will drive like that too. Your children will also drive like that. So be the role model. If you teach your children how to drink it when they're 13 or 14 because you think you're supposed to teach them, oh, if he drinks with you, he will drink with his friends, but then he will drink more with their friends or with his friends. So these are some steps. It's a 12-step approach. I like it. It's on Dr. Bartow's website, Dr. Bartow program. It's pretty cool. It's available online. And it's a continuous, steadfast project. It's not a one-off initiative. If it's a one-off initiative, the efficacy is dramatically reduced. We don't have to address this with, I don't know, fifth graders or sixth graders. No, we have to start working with prevention with pregnant mothers, mothers to be. I have video here. There's 50 videos on Dr. Bartow's website. So when we go to schools, we give them handouts for them to hand out once a month, booklets. And the videos are being played in the classrooms. Teachers play the videos in the classrooms, 3-minute videos, and then they spend 6 minutes of their classes to discuss this material with the kids. They play the video, it's a 3-minute video, and then they have a discussion for another 3 minutes. Very brief, doesn't take up their classroom time, their class time. Let me see if I can play that here for you, just an example. I know some tricks, some magic tricks, but well, playing videos on a screen like this, that's a magic trick that I cannot perform. This is one of our videos. I work at the university. I used to smoke 20 cigarettes a day. And what was the last straw for you to stop smoking? After I watched the choir. This is our choir. The choir of the tracheostomy patients of the Cancer Hospital of São Paulo. They sang at a concert hall in São Paulo. They had tracheostomy. They underwent tracheostomy because of cancer. We're here today because of smoking. I had quit smoking 22 years, and after 22 years, I had this larynx cancer. So that's what touched me. That's when it's always time to quit. It's always time to, and I love to talk, and I love to sing, and I love my voice. So that really moved me, and I quit smoking. I never smoked again. Cigarettes are poison. Don't smoke. And then after each video, there's a message like this for what we call the pre-counseling, because medical literature says that, that previous counseling is a very effective protective factor. So to wrap up this session, I will give 1 minute for each of our speakers for their final considerations. If you had one takeaway for our audience, what would that be? Well, this live, no preparation. I need to prepare. I'm kidding. This was a very fortunate theme. This was a great panel. We talked about quality of life promotion. I don't have to be in a classroom or in a church or in the community. All these settings can be used to promote a healthy life and good quality of life. So we can promote this type of activity pretty much everywhere. In schools, churches encourage our young to use their time in a productive manner, in a healthy way. It's been a pleasure. I'm very happy to be here. Let's keep up the good work. I'm very, very happy to be here, and prevention is the way forward. Let's not forget that. So, like Dr. Barto said, there's no need to be a teacher. I'm a physical therapist, really, but I love working with teenagers. And over the course of my career, I have learned that the sooner we start, the better. The sooner we start, the less involvement with drugs we'll have in the future. So we have to prevent before they start doing drugs. Prevention is of the utmost importance. Thank you for the invitation. This roundtable was excellent. Thank you, Paulo, for this event. And that's it. Let's never give up, and let's work together to achieve the best for our children and teenagers. Thank you. I would like to encourage you all to be available. I'm sure God will use you. God will empower you to drive change, to be a change agent. Think about that. If you're here, God brought you here already to be a change agent. Don't forget that. I've been working with that, and in Brazil, the average age when they start doing that is 12 to 14 years old, both licit and illicit drugs. This is an average. Some start earlier. So that's why I'm working with children in schools, in high schools, in elementary schools, to strengthen their values, their principles, and strengthening families so that they can learn to make the right choices, the best choices. So this is my message to you. Be available. God will make use of you. My joy is to meet people like you, people who make a difference, like these three dear colleagues here on the stage. And my sadness is to see that in politics, things are still the same. We have a new mayor in São Paulo who is using the police to fight the homeless, to fight crack users. He is not giving them any support. He is spreading crack users around the city. So at the political level, there's no prevention initiative. Politicians won't do this work. We have to do it. I talk to pediatricians, pulmonologists, other doctors in general, and if we talk to teachers, we're very concerned about e-cigarettes and vapes, because as healthcare professionals, we know we're creating a generation of people who will be dependent on that. They are starting drugs through this new type of device. We spoke to the State Department of Health the other week, and they said, thank you, goodbye. That was nice. That was good to hear. This happens every year. I've been working with prevention for 20 years, so we cannot, and I know from experience that we cannot rely on the government, on politicians. We have to take action ourselves as society. I'm fed up with our politicians. I'm fed up with our government. So we, as a society, we have to take action. If we don't, they won't. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,